Superman 28, Legacy number 871. This is Joshua Williamson writing with Dan Mora on the art. Yeah, so this was interesting. I was kind of dreading reading this because I forgot we're on a new arc, so I was thinking there was going to be more farm and graft, and then I got to the front of this book and I went, oh wait, no, we finished that arc. That shows you how memorable it was. So that's fun.
Darkseid's Legion. Yeah, just remember farm and graft got punched into eternity in their big super robot. And
I'll take your word for it. I don't remember
it no more.
I got that thing. So the thing here, of course, is that we're doing Darkseid's Legion, as the title would suggest. So we're doing kind of our first crossover where characters from the Absolute Universe are sprinkling in to a story here. And I don't think this was too bad. Like, my hope getting into this was that because it's tied to the ongoing events and because someone else is like shepherding where this story's going overall, that it would kind of lock Williamson into not falling into Williamson traps. Now, he might still do that because, as we always say with Williamson, he takes a couple of issues before he starts to really disappoint us. But so far, I'm not mad at anything. I'll say that. The book starts with Clark going back home to Smallville to get his Legion ring, and he has a little sit down with Martha Kent, who gives him a little pep talk. He's talking about how his memories of the Legion and all that. And how this ties into that villain that showed up, Validus, during the special a few months ago, and he's sort of wanting to look into that, and that's why he's here for his ring. But when he goes out, say to maybe travel to the future to communicate with the Legion or whatever, the absolute Saturn girl shows up, and he's like, "Wait, Imra, what's up with you? You look different." And she kind of very quickly just says, "Oh, you're so different here. I don't know why my master fears you." And she very quickly says Darkseid, and immediately Superman's like, "Darkseid? Whoa. Darkseid was." And she's like, "Darkseid is. Darkseid was. Darkseid was." Yeah. I'm kidding, of course, but yeah. She starts talking, and she's like, "Hey, you've got mental blockers. Someone's trained you to resist telepathy." So on and so on. She mentions that Cosmic Boy and Lightning Lad are near. So the book does pull a twist because we basically get some bad stuff that happens where Lightning Lad and Cosmic Boy destroy the Watchtower with a bunch of heroes inside it. So immediately you're like, okay, either they teleported out at the last second or this isn't happening.
Well, then you have to remember what Saturn Girl's power is, right? And that was my tell. And I was like, they ain't gonna kill Mr. Terrific. They've had a good summer with him so far. They ain't gonna unceremoniously pop his head between two
to be fair,
metal girders.
The whole point though of that first page with Saturn Girl was to try and convince you that her power wasn't working on Superman. So they were trying to lull you into it, but as soon as like heroes started dying, it was like, okay, clearly there's something here. So Superman, flies around, tries to go up and stop them. He's all angry because he thinks a bunch of people have died. And then, of course, the threats to Martha start happening. Of course, Saturn Girl says she's going to go after Martha, and she kind of looks into his head and sees, like, some of the history here. She sees him with Lois, the young John Ken, and just a bunch of stuff and whatnot.
This is some of I like. I don't want to say some of Mora's best work because Mora's always good. Just the chaos of like, it looks like ink blots, right? Through this double page spread, as Superman and Evil Saturn Girl are walking through, it kind of hits that Darkseid is, and again I just call it chaos.
It's kind of like that Darkseid crack that's been left ever since it disappeared. That's kind of ink blotty. So I think it's kind of fitting into that style.
It goes with that, and just the way that it works its way across, right? And there's as they're talking about the Legion, and then like his friends, right? When it's talking about his friends in Smallville that aren't the Legion, it almost makes a Legion L in the negative space, right? There, which I think is a nice little tie. But yeah, Mora's really working on this page because if you look through, there's some really big moments throughout Clark's history represented here. And they all feel like not equally big, but they feel important because they are here. They're almost like his tethers to Superman. So I like that's what they're kind of trying to attack.
Yeah, I do kind of like that we haven't really seen Darkseid yet since the Absolute Universe has been created. And I kind of like this idea of just these characters being like, oh, why does our super Darkseid leader fear you? But we know why he fears Superman, because we've been reading DC Comics for years. But like to this Sarton girl, it's kind of like baffling. So anyway, Time Trapper, Future Doomsday, shows up and kind of breaks the spell from her and him, and grabs Superman and fades away with him to the future or somewhere. And she's pissed as she's like smashing up the ground. And that's when we just get no narration box, no narration bubble, or like, it's just text on its own, the voice, and it's very omnipotent. It sounds like, like the cosmic horror, like God talking to the character.
It's everywhere.
Yeah. And you just like, you were not meant to engage with Superman. You disobeyed me, Sarton girl. You will return to me. You will gather my legion. There is another that could endanger my plans, one that you must protect. So that's an interesting tease in and of itself. So I'm curious to see what that's building to.
And then he drags her to hell.
So that's what it looks like, yeah. So we see kind of like Superman and Time Trapper kind of floating in the time stream. And Time Trapper's like, I don't care about your stupid adoptive mother or anything. We have to save the future. All of this is building to Darkseid's return. This is a big deal. Big stuff's happening, and you need to be on board with this. I warned you. And when they come out of the time stream, right, or wherever, they seem to be in Smallville. But it's like, it looks like more old school. It looks like things are different. And the big reveal at the end of this, we hear a voice coming from off panel, and the final page. Well, I'll phrase it. There was a time way back at the start of this podcast when there was like a second Clark Kent, and there was a lot of theorizing about who that second Clark could be. And one of the running jokes on this show is that it was Prime Time, meaning that we thought that possibly that second Clark was Superboy Prime. It only took 467 episodes to finally get to Superboy Prime's return, but here he is.
Look, I'm going to keep an open mind, okay? I didn't hate Superboy Prime originally, all right? It was just from years of misuse and him being super whiny. It's not my hero. He kind of became internet fandom personified in parts.
He's been reformed.
Was not expecting him to show up here, right? We get to the Smallville, and I'm just like, are they introducing a different version of Clark, right? This almost ultra good, like he was only here, right? Are we getting a Superman and Superboy team up? Because Time Trapper / Doomsday says that he created this pocket dimension for this specialized Superboy. And that's where Prime did not cross my brain at all. So when I turned that page when it was like, sup, you old fart, and I was like, what voice is that in? And then you turn it and it's him. I'm like, God. And I like the newer suit. It's not quite the, evil, him wearing the anti-monitor kind of armor, but he's got the big shoulder pads. Like he's going to go play some football.
He says, you ready to kill some nerds? And then we get meta at the bottom where he's like, oh yeah, I'm back again, dear readers. You better be here next month to watch me save Superman, the Legion of Superheroes. I smell an event coming. So, meta and stuff. So all right,
let's strap in, because from my time as a huge Jeff Johns fan, there was the Legion of Three Worlds. All right. Did you read Legion of Three Worlds?
I did not.
Pete? So, Legend of Three Worlds came up during Final Crisis, and it was essentially Jeff's way of bringing back Impulse and Superboy. Along the way, you find out that the Legion is fighting across 3 different timelines, right? So you have the Legion Prime, which is what we're dealing with here. We have the Three Boot Legion, which was Mark Waid's from when I started reading comics, 20 years ago. And then the third Legion was the Legion Lost from the 80s through the 90s, So where XS, the Speedster, comes from, all this other stuff. And they all come together to fight the Time Trapper, because the Time Trapper is trying to write them all out of existence. And when the hood is revealed of who Time Trapper is, it is Superboy Prime, right? So the fact here that we have Williamson, and I know Williamson's a Johns fan. He was handpicked by Johns, right? So the fact that we have Time Trapper Doomsday coming here to this pocket dimension he's helped create to have Superboy Prime, right? There's this long tie there that I, as a long-term comic reader, really appreciate. However, if you are a new comic reader, none of that stuff matters, right? Now you just have the Superboy Prime, and it works because of Time Trapper, whatever, Legion, all the shenanigans that we've read in the last year, you know? But that was where my brain immediately went when I turned the page and saw him and went, oh my God, this is the Time Trapper stuff coming back around. And I kind of like it. It's very, very smart writing. You know, it hits my niche of, it's not quite nostalgic, but it is referencing old continuity type stuff in a fun way. And Doomsday Time Trapper has kind of grown on me. Him and his chains and his hood and his kind of anti-hero, you know, vibe. He needs to save the universe because he wants to become god of the universe.
Honestly, so, that green hood makes me want to call him Dr. Doomsday.
It's not green though, so it's red, but...
Wasn't it green? He's worn a green hood at some point, is he not?
I mean, as Doomsday, he wore the greenish suit, right? But no, the hood's always been that purple robe. I mean, that's key with Time Trapper.
Is it purple?
Because that was the thing, as far as I knew, they never revealed Time Trapper's face. Time Trapper was just a cloaked figure that the Legion fought. So when Johns made it that it's Superboy Prime, that was a huge, big reveal. And yeah, so here that he's Doomsday now, and he's got the chains and the slim down Doomsday, and he's been popping up in all the books. I feel like DC's just worn me down, and I'm just like, you know what? I kind of like this guy, so I'm expecting him to die in a horrendous fashion come KO. You know,
what if he wins, Matt? What if he becomes the god of the absolute universe?
But I mean, in the long term, I know you said that as a joke. In the long term, that makes sense. If we're going to keep the absolute universe around, it goes from it being shaped by Darkseid to shaped by this new Doomsday, who's, you know, rough around the edges, for lack of a better term.
Oh, I meant Superboy Prime. Not Darkseid.
Oh.
Or the Doomsday, rather.
Oh, no, Superboy Prime. If Superboy Prime had an issue with the 2000s heroes not being heroes, that dude's going to hate the absolute universe. You know, he wants Golden Age type stuff. He wants Superman helping old ladies across the street type stuff. But yeah, so this took me by surprise. I saw people online giving this like a lot of like accolades, like, oh my God, this is the most I've enjoyed Superman since Warworld. And I can understand where they're coming from, but it's still nothing's at that level, right? Like that's a generational type story. But from what we have had the past year on this book, with Dr. Farm and all that, you know, Lex and his amnesia and Mercy's heel turn from nowhere, this was very, very solid Superman.
I mean, I don't even know if it's solid Superman per se. It was just entertaining because I'm invested in what's going on with the DC universe, and this is poking that forward a little bit. The actual Superman side of it is fine, but it's not like it's like blowing my socks off as a Superman story. It's just he happens to be the conduit for which we're learning a bit about Darkseid's Legion, and obviously Superboy Prime's kind of a big deal to reveal that, so we'll see where that goes. Yeah. But it's all right. I definitely didn't have a bad time. Obviously, Mora's art is very solid. He's Dan Mora.
Him that first opening sequence, right, with Clark doing the superhero, wasn't it? There it is. With him doing the superhero-y stuff, I really liked the breakdowns, right? He's helping build, you know, the building, and then as Clark Kent, he's seeing some monster ravaging through. He saves, you know, the people from the bullets, and then he's visiting a sick kid in the hospital. It's all stuff that I want to see my Superman doing, you know, and Mora's art, just the way that it makes it feel. There's like an epic quality to him doing these humanistic tasks, right, to help out humanity. And then when you turn the page, you get that big double page spread of him soaring through the sky. And then the small panels of him going back to Smallville and his shoes and everything. It's just some really, really good looking Superman artwork.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird though, because it's like, there's nothing special about those pages in the sense of the story, because it's like, The plot's literally not started yet. This is just, you know, like almost any like start of any Superman arc could have started with these like 3 or 4 pages. You know, it's not specific to this.
These are ones that are drawn by Mora, and they look great. So I will take that. Also, the Mighty Crabjoys make an appearance again, except there's a poster that does not match any of the other Mighty Crabjoy stuff that we've seen thus far. And originally, Dan Mora had drawn it as a ripoff of Dragon Ball Z. It was called like Dragonstone, something along the lines. And if you look at the art, it looks like Goku riding a Triceratops or something. DC sent it back to him and was like, "We can't do this. We don't want to deal with the headache of dealing with, you know, Dragon Ball Z." So he made the decision to make it the Mighty Crabjoys, which I like. So if we keep getting these in the background, you know, as a band that's there, like you said, like Big Belly Burger and Jitter's Coffee and all that type of stuff, I'll be very pleased.
All right, what are you giving Superman?
I'm a straight 8. I thought this was really good.
I'll say 7. It was good. I wouldn't say it was great though. But I'm more interested in the larger stuff for the DCU that it's hinting at. Like the Saturn Girl and Darkseid conversation was by far the most excited I got.
Yeah, that took me by surprise. Just the big omniscient voice coming through. That was super cool.